This is Randy Sullivan, the host of Bourbon Real Talk. I grew up in a small town and went to a small church where everyone looked and thought like me. Over the years, I've gotten to know and love people from all different walks of life. This has made my world bigger and richer. The secret ingredient in forming those relationships was getting to know people's real stories. That helped me to identify with them, have compassion on them, and eventually develop a real connection with them. We live in a disconnected world today, and I want to do everything in my power to build connections between individuals who may not have attempted friendship otherwise. I've observed this happening in the bourbon community on its own because whiskey naturally brings people together. Bourbon Real Talk hopes to combine the world's new passion for bourbon into an opportunity to bring people together. We will share some whiskey knowledge, some good drams, and some real talk. So sit back, pour a drink, and open your hearts and minds. You might just find yourself feeling more connected to the people in the world around you, all fueled by bourbon. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Bourbon Real Talk. We have, as always, a very special edition today. We have Christopher Hale, my uncle, as a special guest appearance today. And we are going to be drinking Parker Heritage 11 year, which, if you don't know, the Parker Heritage Collection, they release one per year. And the 11th release of that series was an 11-year whiskey. So that makes it interesting. And you know what? It would have been really confusing if the 12th was an 11-year whiskey, or like the 10th. You know, if you were like trying to find that whiskey online or whatever. And so, Chris, do you know why I picked this whiskey to drink with you?
To tell you the truth, I don't have a clue.
Okay, all right. So a while back ago, Chris and I went on a day drinking adventure. And we went to Union Bear, and it was, I believe, right after this was released. So we were able to get a pour of it, and you loved it. And so
I remember that.
yeah, and so I ended up deciding, you know what, I'm gonna buy a bottle of this, and I bought one, and I loved it, and so I have bought a second one, and it's sitting upstairs waiting to be cracked for when we finish this one. So, pro tip: if you have a whiskey that you care about and you plan on drinking it very slowly, and your bottle gets kind of low, you might want to transfer it to a smaller bottle. So, fat shout out to David Getty, who bought these bottles for me, probably because I had a 1998 Russell's Reserve, and he would come over to drink it with me from time to time. And he was worried that it was going to oxidize, so he got on Amazon Prime and shipped me a box of floozies. That's what he calls them. I guess they're floozies. I don't know. I have no reason to doubt David. He knows more than I do. And so I do occasionally transfer my higher-end whiskeys into these smaller bottles to protect them from oxidization, and you know, we just kind of go from there. So luckily I do have another one on backup, but I believe, is this it's a single barrel, so I'm hopeful that the next one will be as good as the last one. So Chris is not super experienced in the whiskey world
Yet,
but he drinks with me, and so the reason why I made a comment about the next one being as good as since it's single barrel, each one is a little bit different, sometimes very different. Do you want your glass on this side or the other side?
over here. All right. Thank you.
No worries. So, Chris, most of Chris's whiskey drinking experience has been with me. Is that fair to say?
Well, that and when I shoot pool.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
I shot pool at Click's Billiards in Carrollton for 29 years of my life. And practically every time I'd go up there, I'd have one or two shots at least.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, but he was doing shots. He wasn't sipping and enjoying. I remember the night, because Chris actually quit drinking for a long time, because I went up there one time at New Year's Eve, and things got a little bit wild. Then after that, he stopped drinking for a bit.
This is very true. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart for that day and that night.
So anyway, let's smell this bad boy up. So this is Parker Heritage 11-year, the 11th release. So keep in mind, Parker Heritage is a it's a Heaven Hill product. So it's basically Elijah Craig barrel proof, but maybe like premium barrels. I don't know. And I love it. So on the nose, it's got a nice citrus component, maybe like an orange peel, like orange zest kind of a thing, you know. It's got some spice that's coming through, maybe a little bit of cinnamon, maybe some nutmeg or something. But and keep in mind, whenever I'm doing these reviews, I'm leaving out the obvious. Yes, there's tons of vanilla, there's tons of caramel or caramel, however you want to say it. I'm trying to look for the flavors that are beneath that. So on this, I get a lot of like chocolate and caramelized sugars. So like the crust of a creme brulee, you know, where it's the burnt part. I get a lot of that because there's a little bit of smoke coming through, but those caramelized sugars. I'm gonna taste it.
Also, I'm glad that you brought out the fact of the citrus, because I was trying to put my finger on what kind of citrus it was when you said orange peel. Well, that hit.
Yeah. Well, and you know, when you're going through your tasting notes, the power suggestion is very powerful. I mean, it's you know, you could, especially for a deep, robust whiskey like this that does have a lot of complexity to it. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that you could say that somebody go, oh, okay, yeah, I'm getting that in there.
Oh yeah.
You know, a little bit of toasted marshmallow, a little bit of, you know, but yeah, there is a citrus component to this that gives it a really bright feeling on the palate.
Exactly.
And I think that's probably one of the reasons I love it so much, and one of the reasons why I love Elijah Craig barrel proofs as well. So pretty darn good whiskey. Obviously, I'd rate it a buy because I've bought it at above retail price twice. So I'm clearly a fan.
I would say that you like it then.
So, Chris, you don't have like a big bottle collection or anything like that. What's your regular go-to whiskey?
Jim Beam, Black Label.
Yeah, so he likes the Black Label, which for those of you who are unfamiliar, the Black Label it's a non-age dated product, but in the materials that they release, they basically say that it's aged, I want to say 7 to 8 years versus,
yes,
4 to 6 years or something like that. So it's got a little bit more age on it, which gives it a little bit more, complex flavor from the time that it spent in the wood. 8 years is plenty, I think. So it's a pretty darn good whiskey, and I have it sometimes whenever I go over to your house.
I love it.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So for those of you who are listening and not watching, the reason why I'm having my uncle on is he is fully disabled, handicapped. He was born with a medical condition called
arthrogryposis.
Don't ask me to pronounce it. I Googled it once, and Google figured it out. So basically, describe the effects of this.
Basically, arthrogryposis is all your joints are stiff, and you don't have, like I don't have the muscles in my arms to bend my arms. I don't have biceps. I have triceps, but no biceps. I do not have the muscles in my legs to keep my knees stiff.
Right.
So therefore, I have to wear plastic braces that go down over my feet, over the bottom of my feet, and up underneath my buttocks in the back.
Right.
And then I have a plastic shell that goes over my knees, and there's a Velcro strap at the bottom of the shell and one at the top
Mm-hmm.
to hold the shell on and to hold my knees in. Um, I've had this condition all my life, and if it wasn't for the grace of God and Scottish Rite Hospital and my family, my mother and my father, I wouldn't be standing here talking to you today.
No. Yeah.
Scottish Rite is probably the world's leading institution for helping crippled children
Mm.
or children with disabilities. And the reason that I say that is that they have helped me ever since I was, I think, 18 months old.
Yeah.
And it never cost us a thing, not one red cent.
Wow. Yeah. So I've heard my grandmother, his mother, say before that when he was born, the doctors told her that they didn't expect that he was going to live very long.
Actually, they told him when I was born that I wouldn't live to see 5 years old.
Right.
And then when I reached 5 years old, well, they told them, my folks, that they might as well put me in an institution somewhere because I wouldn't live to see 20. And I'm 58.
Well, I think that maybe medical knowledge has advanced a little since then. Um, I think that they might be a little bit more aware of what was going on nowadays. But yeah, I could imagine that was pretty stressful for my grandparents, your parents, to be dealing with that, and to be, people that you trust telling you that you were going to lose your child. And so, if you're not watching, but you're listening, my uncle, how tall are you? About five,
I'm 5'3.5".
3.5. Um, he, the joints are stiff, but he has more mobility in his ball joints. So his legs have more mobility, and his arms have mobility in his shoulders, and he has zero mobility in hinge joints. So his knees don't bend at all, his elbows don't bend at all, and so his arms are down by his side, and he's able to walk with the support of the braces that he described on his legs. And then he has the mobility in his shoulders to move crutches, and so he gets around just fine.
Actually, I've learned when I learned to walk, and they taught me how to walk at Scottish Rite. And the majority of people with this condition, when they walk, they do more of throwing their legs and their shoulders and whatnot to move the crutches
Mm-hmm.
than to move your arms or your shoulders and whatnot with your muscles that you have in your arms and your shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing with the legs is I don't have the muscles it takes to move my legs like you or someone normally would do.
Right.
So that's basically what I do is I throw my legs to take a step,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'll twist my body to move the crutches.
Right. And not setting any land speed records, but he can get darn near anywhere. I've been taking him places since I was old enough to drive, and we've been everywhere, man. We've been everywhere.
We've been here, we've been there, we've been everywhere, man.
So, so when you were very young, growing up, you had siblings.
Yes.
How many did you have? Was it five?
There was 6 of us all together.
Yeah, there were 6 altogether, 5
And
siblings.
then I had a brother that was older than me commit suicide when I was 9 years old, and he was 19. So he's 10 years older than me.
Yeah.
And then I've got a brother that's the baby of the family, that's younger than me, and a sister that your mother that is just a little over a year older than me.
Yeah.
And then I have the oldest brother um, is either 72 or 73, and he's not doing so good right now, but we won't go into that.
Right.
But you know, to tell you the God's honest truth, my brothers and my sisters, I grew up with them treating me like they treat anybody else.
Right.
You know, uh, my youngest brother, would come up and punch me, and
I believe that he's kind of an asshole.
uh, when he would punch me, well, I would have to retaliate and crack him across the shin with my wooden crutches, and that hurt.
Yeah, it hurts real bad. I don't remember if you actually gave me a Kraken when I was a kid,
I did, but I don't think you remember it.
but I remember it being painful. I was like, did I imagine that? I don't know. So growing up, you have all these siblings. Everyone's treating you the same. One part that we did skip is that when you were born, your hands were facing the wrong direction.
My hands were clubbed, and which means that my fingertips, when I was born, were up against my wrist,
Right.
and my hands would not straighten out straight from my arms. And then I had club feet, which meant that my feet turned in
Mm-hmm.
and were all jacked up, and they had to go in and break my ankles and set them in cast, and break my wrist and set them in cast. Also, when I was born, my right thigh was broken in delivery,
Mm.
and I had what they call scissor legs, which my legs were crossed, and they were crossed so tight that my mother couldn't hardly even shove a diaper up through there
Mm-hmm.
to put a diaper on me.
Wow.
So they had to go in, re-break both of my thighs, offset the bone, and put steel pins through my thighs. And at the same time, they broke my ankles and fixed them. And I was in a complete body cast that went from underneath my armpits down over my entire body with a 2.5 foot yardstick that was cut down to 2.5 foot between my legs, molded into my cast.
Mm-hmm.
So my legs couldn't pull back together.
Right.
They were set in that position.
And that's what had to happen before you could get
That's what
braces and walk.
had to happen before I could walk
Gotcha.
or even begin to learn to walk.
So once you got, past that point, you're able to walk. You started to go to school because you went to public school, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you remember being received by the other kids in school?
Actually, the other kids, for about the first 2, maybe 3 weeks, they were staring at me and gawking about me to each other underneath their breath and whatnot. Well, I'm the kind of person, I don't let that kind of stuff bother me.
Mm-hmm. Going through grade school, you felt like you were pretty well received, or
Pretty much.
were there continuous problems?
The kids that I went to school with, they wasn't really uh, ribbing me because of my disability.
Mm-hmm.
They was ribbing me because they knew that I had a short temper.
Right.
And I went all through school in a wheelchair. And they thought, well, he's got this really short temper, but what can he do? And uh, I shut him down with my mouth.
Right.
I didn't have to get physical.
Right. So you must have been about, let's see, you said that you were 9 when you lost your brother.
Mm-hmm.
So you must have been around, what is that, the fourth grade, fourth or fifth grade, something like that.
Yeah, I think it's the fourth grade.
Yeah. So your brother's name was Randy,
Correct.
which is
Which is
where,
your namesake.
yeah, he's my namesake. That's where my name came from. My mother named me after her brother who took his own life. And if you guys have watched any of the other episodes, you know that my brother Sean took his life a few years ago. So this podcast is very dedicated to the concept of getting people help that struggle with thoughts of suicide and depression. We want to make sure that everybody knows that they're loved and has purpose and whatnot. But having gone through that, you were already dealing with a lot of difficulties. Um,
True.
did that kind of change your outlook on life, or did it change the way you interacted with people?
Well, it did, but for the worst. Because after that happened, my brother that committed suicide, he and I were real tight. He used to race motorcycles.
Mm-hmm.
The only kind of racing that he never did or never wanted to do was ice, but he raced everything else. And believe it or not, I talked a while ago about being in a body cast
Mm-hmm.
with a bar between my legs. Well, my brother would take me on his motorcycle in that body cast,
Wow.
and he would stand me up on the seat in front of him and between him and the gas tank, and we'd go wherever we wanted to. And there was a hamburger joint right down the road from where we lived, that where all the teenagers hung out. And he used to like to take me up there with him and stand me up in the booth beside him, and all the girls would just flock over there. We'd have 10 or 15 girls surrounding our table, flirting with my brother, and oh, he's so cute, and what's the matter with him? And oh, but we had a blast doing that.
Yeah.
But there was never a moment while he was alive that I could remember trying to talk to him, and he would tell me he was too busy.
Right.
He always talked to me,
Right.
and he always put me first,
Right.
above his friends, above everybody else. And that really meant a lot to me. And then when my brother took his life, it just tore me to pieces. And I went through probably a 10 or a 15-year bout of anger to where I was mad at the world for any and everything that happened, good or bad. And luckily to say, I got over that.
Right.
And happily to say that I started getting over that when you got old enough to drive, and you and I started going places together, and you doing things with me and taking me to different places and whatnot, no matter if it was places where a bunch of your friends were gathering or whatever it happened to be. You didn't care, and that showed me respect, and that is when I started to change my life.
Yeah, because I know that you had some dark times where there was even some drug use, things like that. And that's something that a lot of people turn to try to deal with, the struggles that they're facing in the world. And, for clarity, and I don't know if you guys who are listening have thought of this, but like, if you have a itch on your nose right now, you'll just scratch it. In fact, you won't even think about it. My uncle has never touched his face.
My hands have never touched my face.
He's never put a bite of food in his mouth. He's never, there's a lot of stuff that he can't do, just because his arms don't bend. But there's a lot of stuff that you can do that's amazing. So my uncle is actually a certified billiards instructor.
A master level instructor.
Yeah, we started hanging out actually when you were playing pool in pool halls, and
true.
And there was a pool hall in the city that I grew up in, and my mom would take me up there and drop me off. I think it was every Thursday. So every Thursday after school, my mom would take me up, and I would hang out in this bar with my uncle for however many hours. Then we would just play pool and have fun. And, he knew everybody's name and everybody knew him. And, we just go up there and he'd teach me how to play pool. And I know how to play pool a little bit. Like I'm not pro level at all, but I can kind of hold my own if you don't know what you're doing, basically. As long as you're not a pro, I can probably beat you. All thanks to my uncle. So those were some good times. And I think that started when I was probably about 13 or 14.
I think you did.
But I grew up hanging out with you. I can remember about that time frame. My parents went on vacation or something during the summer, and I wasn't in school. And rather than have me go stay somewhere else, they had you come stay with me. And then I knew how to get you ready for bed, and, and I knew how to cook and all that stuff. They just wanted some supervision there just in case.
Yeah.
I decided hey, what if we do this thing that's going to burn the house down? And you would be there to go let's not do that.
Could you open the door so I can get out?
Right. That's true. I'm not sure how this guy, we did some crazy things together for sure. This is Randy Sullivan with the Randall Sullivan Home Selling Team and the host of Bourbon Real Talk. Producing a podcast is time consuming and expensive, and Bourbon Real Talk wants to maintain its integrity by not promoting products and services that it doesn't believe in. For this reason, I've opted to have my real estate team sponsor this program. The Randall Sullivan Home Selling Team has operated since 2008. We've sold almost 500 homes. We have proprietary programs that make a massive difference to the outcome of our clients, and we service the entire North Texas area. If you live in North Texas and you need to buy or sell a home, please give us a chance to explain how our services could benefit you. We understand that not all of our listeners live in North Texas. We also know that not all real estate agents are created equal. If you need a real estate agent outside of North Texas, the Randall Sullivan Home Selling Team has access to tools to help you find a highly qualified agent in your area. The service is free for you, and we stick around through the end of the process to help you with your transaction, even when we're not your agent. If you have a real estate transaction in your future, please reach out to us at randallsullivanteam.com, Facebook, Instagram, or just give us a call at 214-385-9101.
Well, back then, I was spending 7 days a week in the pool hall. And what Randy's not telling you is that when he and his now wife moved back from College Station, they moved into some apartments that were right across the street from the pool hall that I always played at. I spent 29 years of my life every day of every week at the pool hall. And Randy and his wife just so happened to move into these apartments that was right across the street from the pool hall. And it shocked me because he calls me up. It's either on a Wednesday. No, I take it. He calls me up on a Thursday. And he goes, Hey, Uncle Chris. I said, yeah, what's up? He said, hey, man. He says, I was just wondering. He says, Lindsay and I are going to start having a Bible study over at my house or over at our apartment. And he says, I just was wondering if you'd be interested in coming. And the first thought that popped into my head was cool. I'm going to get to spend some more time with my nephew because we always got along real good together. And we always had a blast every time we was together. So I said, yeah, I'd love to. Well, unbeknownst to me, this Bible study, I went to it for what, a year and a half?
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't start going to it for the reason that I should have. But as the Bible studies kept going on week after week after week, God was coming into my life a little more and a little more and a little more each time. And to where I started thinking more about my life and what God wanted of me through my life from that point forward. And to make this a little shorter, if it wasn't for this man sitting right here to the left of me, I wouldn't be a Christian today. Um, we was had a Bible study over there one Thursday night, and it wrapped up about 10:30, and we didn't leave from his apartment until at least 11:15, 11:30. And we drove to my house, which was about 10 minutes from where he left or lived. And we just sat in the driveway and talked and talked and talked. And it was beginning to get cold outside because I remember that we had the heater on. And Randy asked me, he says, hey, Chris, have you ever asked the Lord into your life to be your Lord and Savior, to be your master? And I looked at him. I said, not that I know of. He says, would you like to? And I didn't waste any time. I said, absolutely. So he prayed the prayer with me, asking for salvation and asking uh, for the Lord to come into my heart and to live inside of me and be my Lord and Master. And folks, I have never been the same since that day. I I've changed my life up a lot. I'm a lot easier to get along with family and with just friends. And I wholeheartedly believe that that's all due to Jesus Christ.
Well, that is a great testimony. That actually did lead you into some other areas of your life. It was after that that you started singing, right?
That it was after that that I started singing, and I there was a church about 5 minutes, 5 or 10 minutes down the road from where I lived in Carrollton that my brother had been baptized in. And once I became a Christian, I became a regular member of this church. And my brother had stopped going at the time, but the guy that he worked for um, owned a plumbing company, and I was into Amway and all of that stuff around this time. And this guy that owned the plumbing company, he and I were friends too. We went to school together, and this never would have happened if I wouldn't would have still been the same person I used to be. But this guy and his wife, we had scheduled a trip to Miami um, with Amway, and my brother didn't want to go. And Lewis and his wife said, "Don't worry about your brother because we're there. We're willing to help you with everything you need help with, and we'll take you and take care of you to the best of our ability." So guess what? I went to Miami. That's the first trip that far away I've ever taken without one of my family members. And it turned out just great. And then this guy that owned the plumbing company, the next out of town thing that we had, he talked my brother into going. And we was going to Orlando. And trust me, folks, Orlando isn't near as much fun as Miami. That's all I'm going to say about that.
All right. For my loving friends that live in Orlando, no offense, I've only driven through Miami. I cannot independently verify this assessment. I know that I had a great time in Orlando with you guys. So big ups to my friends in Orlando. Carry on.
I didn't mean anything derogatory toward anyone who lives in Orlando. We was the people that went on that trip. We were stuck together. Okay, it's not like we got to go to Orlando and we each go out and go our own separate ways and go exploring. And I just didn't have a good time because we stayed at the hotel. And when we went to Miami, we stayed at the Fountain Blue, which is a 5-star hotel right on the beach. And I had a blast.
A lot of new experience.
Huh?
A lot of new experiences.
Exactly. But you know, I've had a lot of really tremendous people come into my life and do things with me and for me. And I don't know how many really religious people are watching this, but the Bible tells you that God puts people in your life for a season, for a particular reason. And once that season or that reason has been completed, they may stay and you might become lifelong friends, or they may be gone as soon as they completed their mission. Well, I've met a lot of really tremendous people that way, friends and just perfect strangers, and I wouldn't give it up for the world. I have been very, very, very blessed to have the family that I have, to have the nieces and nephews that I have, and I wouldn't trade any of them for all the money in the world.
Well, that is beautiful and a testament because, we all have our stuff that we deal with in our daily lives, and it seems like the most significant thing in the world. But, everybody out there is facing struggles, and some people's struggles are much larger than others, and sometimes it's nice to just put that into perspective. So there was a time where you were spending a lot of time in the pool hall. Then, there was a time you got pretty actively involved in church. And since that time, you have made some, your life has changed quite a bit. So tell the people what, your day in, day out life looks like, because they're actually, and this might be shocking. There was a time frame where you had your own car and could actually drive. You said to your counselor, you want to learn how to drive. And he ends up actually putting you in contact with some people,
yes,
who especially modify vehicles,
yes,
for handicapped individuals to be able to operate them.
Correct.
And so you had a driver's license and a vehicle for how long?
Well, at the time, when all of this come to be that I was going to get my license, well, or I was going to get to drive, well, I went and took my driving test. I failed the driving part of it one time, and the examiner that was in charge of all the other driving examiners come back and told me that the only reason I failed it the first time is because this particular examiner that was riding with me did not totally understand how a disabled person could uh, maneuver the car and himself to do the things like turn and turn your turn signals on and all this that I had to do.
Mm-hmm.
Well, all that was rigged up to where I could do it with no problem. I worked my turn signals with a little button that was up by my right side of my forehead, um, and the rest of it I had special made accelerator and brake control that it was all made into one apparatus, but to accelerate, I would turn my foot to the right, and to brake, I would turn my foot to the left. And it was really, really easy for me to learn to drive that way with that vehicle that was fixed up for me like that.
This is Randy Sullivan with RSHST Capital LLC and the host of Bourbon Real Talk. Producing a podcast is time consuming and expensive, and Bourbon Real Talk wants to maintain its integrity by not promoting products or services that it doesn't believe in. For this reason, I have opted to have my funding company sponsor this program. RSHST Capital is the first of its kind funding company that provides pay-at-close funding to home sellers out of their equity. If you have a home to sell, need money for renovations or repairs to maximize your profit, money to stop pending foreclosure or to keep your mortgage current, or cash for really anything, then look into RSHST Capital. This program is simple. We verify that you have equity, approve you for a funding amount. You have access to that cash at practically a moment's notice for only a nominal fee. This program is raising sellers cash after closing by tens of thousands of dollars, stopping foreclosures and changing people's financial future. You pick your real estate agent, your contractor, and have access to actual cash or contracting expenses with zero upfront cost. This is a nationwide program, so if you have any curiosity about how it works, please look us up at rshstcapital.com, Facebook, or just give us a call at 214-385-9101.
You were able to pass your driving test. You got your license. How many years were you able to drive on your own?
4.
About 4 years. And during that time frame, that completely changed your life because you were able to, on your own,
go do what I wanted to
go
do
do
when I wanted to do it and come home when I wanted to.
right, because the van was designed that it would get you in and out of the van.
Correct.
It was kind of a pain in the arse whenever it was raining and things like that because it wasn't
Oh,
super
yeah.
fast, and that can be dangerous because his crutches can slip on wet surfaces. So if you ever go to a restaurant with us, you'll see me walking through, testing all the surfaces, picking up napkins, wiping shit off the ground, all that stuff so that he doesn't slip, because when he falls, it's bad. He, breaks bones, compound fractures. It's like really bad. And so for about 4 years, you had that freedom.
Correct.
And so I can remember, the bad thing about, these modified disabled vehicles is that they are very expensive to modify, and even a minor accident can result in, $60,000-$70,000 worth of damage.
Well, I'll put it this way. I had 3 different vehicles. Well, they was all the same kind, Dodge Grand Caravans. and all three of them were insured for $310,000.
Right. And so when there was a car accident, insurance companies are not real keen on insuring these vehicles. And in the end, you ended up having a car accident, and the insurance company wouldn't cover you for another vehicle. Is that
No,
accurate?
when you get your license through um, Texas Rehab, or what I got mine through was called DARS, um, you could go through no more than three vehicles. And after three, the state of Texas will not pay uh, for you to have another vehicle. Of course, I was buying the vehicles, but with
The
the
program paid for the
with the
modifications.
conversions and all that were done on the van is what took it up to 310,000.
Right. And the issue is like even because they had to cut the frame and they had to do major modifications, even a minor accident would cause massive damage. So, it's not like, he was hitting telephone poles center mass like
Now,
full bore. Even a small accident would cause major damage. So, after 4 years or so, and this wasn't that long ago, you lost that freedom that you had been
correct,
wanting for your entire life.
correct.
And then shortly thereafter, you know, my grandfather had passed away, and he was a big help in being a caregiver for you, right?
Yes, he and my mother both.
And then my grandmother became your main caregiver, but her health was failing.
True.
And so you went from having the freedom to go do whatever you wanted, whenever you wanted, to having to move out into my mother's house out in the country, far away from all of your friends, all of your regular, things that you would do for entertainment and, just to, keep yourself sane. Um, so what does your week consist of now?
Actually, I go to see my mother in the nursing home every other day,
Mm-hmm.
and my mother is my life. I've never loved another person on the face of this earth like I love my mother. She means the world to me. And so, basically, unless I go out to eat with you or somebody else, my week or consists of um, going every other day up to the nursing home and spending 3.5 4 hours with my mother in the nursing home, and then my sister comes and picks me up. Your mom comes and picks me up around 4, and uh, that's about the only time that I get to get out of the house.
Right.
And going from playing pool every day of my life, and pool is my life, to not being able to play in over a year, it's just been nerve wracking as all get out.
Yeah. You also come to my house every Friday morning.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
I come over here and
So I help with baths. For all of you haters out there that think I'm an asshole, fuck off.
yeah,
So
because I can assure you, he's not an asshole.
well, maybe I am. I don't know, but I'm a nice one. Anyways, so no, for about the last 10 years, um, all the people who used to help you with your bath, which requires somebody to pick you up and put you in the bath and then pick you up out of the bath, which is the hard part,
Mm-hmm.
all have back injuries. So when I moved back from Austin, I started doing it. There was a time frame, maybe a year and a half during that time frame that
True.
that you had a caregiver that they were willing to do it.
And you would come over now and then to when the caregiver couldn't
Right.
show up, and you would carry me back and forth.
But I'm never available for anything on Friday mornings because my schedule is permanently blocked every Friday morning to see my mom and my uncle and help with the bath. Again, because I'm such an asshole. And for all of you out there that look at the way I look, and obviously I have some muscle, also know that the reason why I started working out was because when I moved back from Austin and I had to carry my beloved uncle, I had back injuries, and I realized, oh crap, he's going to live a very long time, and I'm the only adult male left in the family that can lift him. And so that was part of my motivation for getting into shape.
And he has been a godsend.
So that's part of the reason why I work out, and it's the reason why I'm never available on Friday mornings. So despite all of these setbacks, had some wild times when you were a kid, experienced some loss, went through a dark period, drugs, drinking, bad choices.
True.
Gave your life to Christ. Found some new ways to spend your time, had great people that came into your life for seasons, had a time frame where you had that freedom that you and I all take for granted, right? The freedom to get up and get in your car and go where you want to go, when you want to go.
And that was another one of those seasons that I was talking about.
Right. And now you're in a different time frame in your life where you don't have as much freedom. You don't do as many fun things as you used to do.
True.
I have never seen you feel sorry for yourself in my entire life. I've never even seen you get upset about people staring at you. I get, like, we were at lunch today, and there was a dude that was sitting further down from us. When we go out to eat lunch, we usually have some drinks, but we usually sit at the bar because he doesn't bend, so he doesn't sit. And it's just easier if we're at a high top because the food's, closer. And
more at mouth level.
Mouth level. So we're sitting at the bar, and there's this guy sitting down from us. And every time I look up, he's staring at my uncle. And I look at my uncle, and I go, that motherfucker's got a staring problem. And my uncle goes, I don't care. And I was like, how? How do you not? Why do you not care?
Because I put up with it all my life.
Right. And so you have a pretty positive outlook on life. Why do you think that is?
God.
Maybe. But you had a positive outlook on life before you gave your life to Christ. I mean, you were engaging in some negative behaviors to cope, but even before you became a Christian, I don't ever remember you. I mean, I can remember this one time, I told y'all we just drive around. Like one time we went to Uptown. I don't even know why we were down there. I think we were looking for a restaurant somebody told me about, but this was like before Google or whatever, so you couldn't just find it. And we're driving around looking for this restaurant. We went in this place, and I think they had a wait that was too long. And we were leaving, and we were trying to get through the door at the same time. And like I said, he's not the fastest in the world. So sometimes people don't know what to do because they want to give way, but they also don't want to wait for too long. And there was this couple that was coming out, and the wife was like this uptown snooty chick. She was a little bit older, and she was clearly drunk. And she looked at my uncle, and she goes, "Look at you. You're a cripple." And he looked at her, and he goes, "Yes, ma'am, I am." And I'm looking at her husband like, I have to fight you now. Like, can you not put a muzzle on her? Jesus Christ. I don't care how much she had to drink. That was fucking rude, right? Like, I'm like losing it. And you're just like, oh, yeah, it's cool. Yeah, I'm crippled. Let's move on.
Well, you get over that kind of stuff real quick when you're born this way and then going through grade school, because grade schoolers are some of the meanest motherfuckers on the face of the earth. And they don't even think about what they're saying. They just let shit pour out of their mouth. And like they're vomiting, you know.
Yeah.
But I learned a long time ago that it's not what people say; it's what people do,
Okay.
and I don't pay any attention to it. If they want to sit back and make fun of me, they're the ones that are idiots, not me.
I like that. Well, let's wrap it up with that. Do you have any other words of wisdom that you want to share with the people?
Just be the best kind of person that you can possibly be. Love when possible, and life's going to turn around and start treating you like a king.
There's always a brighter day. All right. Well, I know that my uncle's not super involved in social media, so I'm not going to do the chance for you to give your social media shout outs. But if you would like more information about Bourbon Real Talk, you can find us on our website at bourbonrealtalk.com. You can find us on Facebook at Bourbon Real Talk. You can find us on Instagram /Bourbon Real Talk. And you can find us on any podcast player. We would love it if you would subscribe on whatever medium that you normally consume this type of content on. If it's YouTube, subscribe there. If you listen to iTunes on the podcast app, if you could subscribe there. If you could give us a review, that would be great, because reviews are looked at in the algorithm to decide how high up our podcast is going to show up when people run searches. So that would help people find us. If you have show suggestions, sure.
That's easy for you to say.
Easy for me to say, as Justin Merrick would say, because bourbon. If you have show suggestions, you can go to the website. There's a link that you can fill out. If you think that you'd be an interesting guest, I'd love to talk with you about that. And as always, I love you, and I will see you next time on Bourbon Real Talk.